There's a ripple effect that begins when someone takes the most trying time in their life and creates something bigger than themselves. The pain doesn't disappear, but it can evolve into purpose, into connection, into something that reaches beyond the individual.
My dad passed away when I was 24. He died from complications following a stem cell transplant for leukemia, and his loss was absolutely devastating to me and my family. He was my best friend, my childhood hero, and I knew pretty instantly that I wanted to take that experience and that grief and do something good with it.
My major loss was my brother's overdose 7 years ago. My whole body was thrown out of whack. I was not okay. And my mind started telling me things and stories that really were not true. And I was really doing a good job of blowing up my life.
This Mother's Day, May 11th, marks the 35th anniversary of the birth and subsequent death of my firstborn, who died 26 minutes after he was delivered following unexpected delivery complications. I would go on to experience 2 second trimester miscarriages, 2 complicated but successful pregnancies, a 6-week psychiatric stay for severe depression, and 1 final pregnancy. 6 weeks before that child was born, I discovered that my husband and my best friend were having an affair.
I came into the griefy world because I lost my younger and only sibling, Dr. Manudua, to oral cancer. He was a dentist like myself.
In 2007, when I was 27 years old, my mother died from breast cancer, and I had been her caregiver for almost a decade. In 2011, my father died from brain cancer. When I reflect on my life, it's a pretty good example of what we call post-traumatic growth.
Hi, my name is Kara Sanchez, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Get Griefy magazine. Before I experienced grief firsthand, I truly just thought it was kind of how it was depicted in the movies. And I thought it was something that truly, after a few weeks after the funeral, you would just get over. I wasn't fully able to comprehend how much grief can totally change and uproot your life. And that all happened on June 11th, 2022, when I received the phone call in the NICU that my mom had unexpectedly died on her vacation in Italy. And I was in the NICU with my youngest daughter, and it was such a strange juxtaposition of emotions. In one hand, I was holding my newborn, and on the other, I'm juggling with the fact that I'm never going to see my mom again. And the days, weeks, and months leading that death and leading that loss were honestly a blur, but at the same time, if I really think about it, I can go back to how lost I felt in that acute stage of grief. And I truly just needed a lifeline to feel like I wasn't alone in that scenario. In that moment, I really just felt alone. I felt like I was the only person in the world that was suffering a loss to that extent. Not every part of your grief is something that is bad. I realized through grief that there's so much more to life, and it gives you a really solid perspective and hones in on all of the things that are truly important to you. Things started to change for me when I started to manipulate and use my grief in a creative fashion, and I did start creating guided journals. They were inspired out of the loss that I was experiencing from my mom, and I was also reflecting on the fact that one day the circle of life is going to happen and I am going to pass away and my daughters are going to be left grappling in a similar situation. And I was able to connect and network with other people online that were following a similar path in terms of wanting to channel their grief into something creative. So that's where the idea for the magazine came in. And I felt as if we could do something together. It would create a sense of compassion for others and really just give the grief community a platform to share our stories and inspire others and help others through similar situations.
I want to help other people navigate through something that I really struggled with. I feel entirely transformed by that grief and adversity. I have found my place to peace and joy and happiness, and I really just want to guide others here too. I am taking my experience and my certification, and I will be coaching others. I will be writing and sharing my story. I will also be facilitating writing workshops and speaking on various platforms.
I am a certified grief coach. I call myself a loss and empowerment coach. I'm also certified in multiple modalities of energy healing, and I incorporate that into my coaching practice. Post-traumatic growth looks like exactly what I'm doing. It looks like turning the pain into purpose, and it doesn't need to look like all these things that I'm doing. It doesn't need to look like that for you. It's living in a way that feels right and authentic for yourself and showing up as your true self without the pretense, without the pressure to be something, without the shame, without the guilt, without all the stuff that so many of us have carried really from childhood.
There was one thought that drove me forward, and that is, how is it that some people go on to live happy, fulfilled lives following tragedy, mishap, or mayhem, while others succumb to drugs, despair, a life void, or suicide? That single question spawned thousands more questions, the answers of which I relentlessly pursued and then compiled into a revolutionary program called the 5 Facets of Healing. One important message is that no one is exempt from suffering, but everyone is entitled to healing. And you, neighbor, can experience full spectrum healing. I did finally discover what I did want following my son's death, and that was to be able to celebrate his life.
When I lost my brother in 2021, I found very isolated in my journey because my parents were in a different country at the time, and I recently also lost my dad. And so with all this grief, I found myself very alone. I didn't have any other sibling, and so looking online, I found the magazine Get Griefy with Kira's amazing work that she's put in and connected me to a whole community that I really, really needed, and that's what inspired me. And this community has been such a support system. It's been not only looking at people who have lost, but what they've done with their loss and how they are so uplifting, encouraging, and doing such good work out there.
There were plenty of times when grief was completely overwhelming. And I didn't do a whole lot more than cry and lay around. But I've also learned to allow myself to be transformed by it. I built a career based upon my experiences and wanting to help people like me, and my personal life shifted as well. The in-between part was messy, as this journey usually is. But now, everything from my friendships to the country I live in is different, and I have to say I'm better for it. I'm a birth, grief, and death doula, the author of the book Grief Gems, and the founder of a Healing Doula Academy.
When you're in the depths of grief, I feel as if your brain truly is going through some changes that makes it really hard for you to concentrate. And so the great thing about a magazine is that it's not like a book that's very cumbersome and overwhelming and hard to digest. You can read a 2-page article and really become inspired by someone else's story in a matter of minutes. Additionally, I think the visual element is super important because you want to see the faces and the images that represent their journey. And it was intentionally curated to be extremely colorful and vibrant because when you're grieving, you need to feel that dopamine hit of different colors and some vibrancy back in your life. So I do feel as if a magazine was very important in this space because, yeah, that's what your grieving brain truly needs in the moment to take a next step forward. If someone asked me if I would gain friendships from people online, I would have thought they were crazy, but after seeing other people who have also gone through some pretty devastating losses and seeing the ways that they have incorporated grief and growth into their life, it's so easy to relate to them and see yourself in them, and it just makes friendships easier to establish. And so my first issue of the magazine was inspired by all of the friendships I've made online, and they continue to grow. And with the magazine now, I do have a small business collective of over 65 different types of people who are taking their grief and turning it into something purposeful. And it's really just fun to have these connections with people all over the world, and them being included in my life has been a blessing. The reason why is not a blessing, but our connection is what's the blessing. something that I think is really important is just maintaining that connection with your loved one, even though they're not physically here. You're going to find ways in which you can still live life in their honor, or even feel as if their presence is known. And for me, asking my mom for signs has been something very vital to my healing journey. And it makes me feel like she's cheering me on from above. And I just love getting little winks from her, specifically from sunflowers and peaches. Those are ways that I feel like she's communicating with me. My advice would be that you truly have to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And there are going to be some days that you truly need to just rot in bed and sit in your feelings, but you need to challenge yourself each day to do something. And it's almost as if you are building muscle, or you're working out. Like, you're not going to be able to run a mile right away. You're maybe just going to be able to do a lap. So just keeping your mindset on a little bit of growth each day is all you need to get you through to the other side and feel like you are actually able to live life again.
I'm really happy that I found this Get Griefy collective, because I have always searched for spaces with people like myself that are trying to take their pain and turn it into a purpose. So I am really happy that I found it.